The heck? You're supposed to be off.
Vamos a empezar de nuevo. ¿Cuánto es 2 más 2?
No sé.
¿Cómo se llama esto?
Eso es un 4.
Así que 2 más 2 es igual a... Vamos a tratar de esta manera. Aquí hay 2 galletas. Y en el plato hay 2 galletas. Si muevo estas 2 galletas al plato, ¿cuántas galletas hay en el plato? Axel.
Galletas.
Axel, ¿cuántas galletas hay en el plato?
¿Ese plato no tiene nada?
Good evening, mi gente. This is Collazo, and you're watching and listening to the Founded Translation Bomba Live simulcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Those very cute children you're going to see later in the show, Kaidel y Axel, directamente de Puerto Rico, the latest YouTube sensations. Tonight is our special, our annual, proud to say, back to school edition. Who better than teacher, educator, and activist, and someone that has a lot to say about all these issues related to us going back to school? Shirley Santos. Shirley, welcome back to Bomba Live, my friend.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Rafa. Y familia, I'm very excited about our back to school edition show tonight because we know there's a lot of anxiety around the topic of COVID and kids going back to school. So we here at Bomba Live wanted to bring you some good advice with great tips and some comic relief, of course. So please, llama a la comay, llama a la vecina, and start your watch party because tonight we're going to have a great show for you. We have motivational speaker, retired ASL interpreter, author, level up speaker, change agent, purpose steps strategist, and intentional life coach Addriana Montalvo with us tonight.
Absolutely. And to bring this conversation together from the perspective of an educator, someone that can help us think this through as parents, balancing the work-life school teacher piece. Most of us are going to be doing, our children are going to be doing some sort of virtual scenario. Some of us also are doing this from having to balance this in the perspective of a child that's an English learner, whether they're an immigrant child or someone that just came from Puerto Rico recently. And of course, we have the other layer of children that have special needs, which is a big part of our student population, particularly in the Latino community. So Marisol Serrano-Colon, a longtime educator and activist as well, and a mother, is going to help us kind of think through what are the steps we need to take to prepare ourselves and our children. Because right now, it's a as it always should be, it's a full team effort to begin our school year and to support our children, particularly our youngest ones, with the educational system. This episode's so important that I came off the beach for this one. You know, I was at the La Playa hours ago. Not as exotic as we like to do, Shirley, of course. Without COVID, I would have been in Puerto Rico at some point this summer.
Right.
On one of our favorite beaches. Shirley, in Puerto Rico, what's your favorite beach on the island?
Oh my goodness. Boquerón is always my favorite beach.
Yeah.
That's on the other side of the island, the west side of the island, west coast. And
when I was a kid, it was the same
my
thing.
favorite. We used to go there, Rincon. We used to go there and always rent a cabin and have just an awesome time with our family. But like you said, unfortunately, because of COVID, I mean, I would have been there today, but
no doubt. I wanna shout out el primo mío Hernán Rosado. When I was a kid, my parents' Boquerón was number one.
Oh, see.
But so then in my party 20 somethings, el primo mío, who now lives in Tampa now, he don't live on the island anymore, used to roll down, take us slow down to Cabo Rojo, which is right there.
Right.
And with the we had some good times down there, no question about it. La Palguera and all that stuff. And then with my wife, when the last times we went to Puerto Rico, not too long ago, I never had gotten to go to Culebra. Yeah, esas playas ahí en Culebra, unbelievable.
Listen, I stayed 2 weeks with my family a couple of summers ago, and it was the most beautiful place I've ever been. I like the fact that a lot of people living on the island, not that they don't promote it too much, but they don't like a lot of people coming in. And that has allowed them to keep the life very simple in Culebra. Everybody's very environmentally conscious. The beaches are beautiful, and there's, a couple of virgin beaches, they call them. And they are just a sight to see.
It's really stunning. I encourage anyone to go to the island and check out Culebra. I mean, about 300-400 people live there. And because I think you almost literally drive on the ferry, which actually is not, it was now, I don't know, now it's different, but maybe with Maria, but was a pretty smooth trip at the time.
I went
yeah. Oh, you went with I don't do little planes. I don't do little planes. But that's another story. But anyway, you're absolutely right. And it actually, because it's literally sort of almost within the Virgin Islands, almost. It has a very Caribbean feel there. So just a beautiful place. Shirley, as an educator, how are you preparing for the school year? I think the students start next week. So give people a sense of the level of student you're teaching and how you're preparing for this school year.
Okay, so before I speak a little bit about that, I wanted kind of to summarize what has been going on. As you probably already know, every district, every state is doing things a little bit differently. But in summary, everybody in the nation is opening schools in some sort of form. So we have districts who are going in person with, of course, all these COVID precautions. And you have seen in the news that many of the schools have had to close and do some virtual learning. Resort to virtual learning, of course, because of the concerns of students being COVID positive, obviously. Then other schools have smartened up and said, you know what? No, we're not going to open now in person, not only because, of the risk, but also because it's been very difficult for schools who have been underfunded historically in this nation to be able to comply with all the requirements for COVID. There's a lot of requirements. It's not just social distancing and PPE. We have buildings that are old. We have buildings that do not have updated, systems, heating system, air conditioning systems. And under COVID, there's a lot of requirements that those things have to be updated. So a lot of schools have decided to just open virtually. It's not of course, the best situation, but of course, in the era that we are at, we think that safety should come first. Then there's other schools who have resorted to a hybrid model in which students they're split in two, and they go 2 days to school. One group goes 2 days to school, and then the other group goes another 2 days, and then of course there's some virtual learning. So those are sort of kind of the models that are have been, everybody's doing something different. So I'm doing virtual myself till October 13 in my district, and which is in New Jersey. And of course, today we gave out all the materials to the kids, the Chromebooks. We've been trying to make sure that everybody has technology. giving information to parents about how to get some Wi-Fi if they don't have any. And also we've been working on contacting some local organizations who will be open. Of course, we'll have limited openings and spaces to help the kids with some tutoring. But we've also seen a lot of parents be very smart and kind of work together to help each other. So, it's been interesting. It's been very difficult, but there's a lot of stress going on, but I think we can
a lot of stress. And look, there's no ideal choices here. And we certainly have chronicled our thoughts about why, with good management and solid leadership and really a national buy-in, we could have been in a better position. It's not just about one person. We could be certainly in a better position, but the reality is that this gives us an opportunity to really focus, prioritize to the extent we weren't already, our children's education, get more involved in it. And really, while it's going to cause a lot of stress in the long run, this could be an opportunity for us to really, sort of help chart a path for our children on the education that they deserve. Shirley, I want to play another one of these adorable videos. In a little bit. In a little bit, we're going to have these wonderful children, Kaidel y Axel, and their father, Jesus, who's the mastermind behind these adorable children that also provide some social commentary, as you're going to see from some of their videos. And then we'll introduce our very special guest to dive into the new school year and how we need to work together to support our children and support ourselves, because as our guests are going to share with us, we also have to support ourselves through this process. So let's check out Kaidel y Axel, and we'll come back with our very special guest.
Kaidel, ahí está llegando un avión.
Pues vamos. Hola, bienvenido a Puerto Rico.
Welcome to Puerto Rico.
¡Todo Puerto Rico! A comer pasteles con el lechón, arroz con cangules y a beber ron, que venga morcilla, venga de todo. Y que se chave todo.
Turista, bienvenido a Puerto Rico. Tenemos las mejores playas, tenemos buena música y también tenemos buena comida.
Y también tenemos coronavirus.
Oh, that hurt. That's a little Axel coming up with some commentary. We're going to hear from them in a second. But Shirley, why don't you introduce our very special guest?
Absolutely. So without further ado, we have Addriana Montalvo with us and Marisol Serrano-Colon tonight. Super excited.
Welcome to the Bomba Live Found Translation. Ladies, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
Addriana, how are you, honey?
Thank you for the invitation. Super excited to be here.
And Addriana didn't realize till the pregame that we've known each other quite some time. Shout out to our friends that brought us together with the U.S. Bank Leadership Institute. Dr. Juan Andrade's wonderful organization that does leadership development. Of course, our tia Maria LaBoy that organized that effort a few years back. But anyhow, Shirley, I thank you so much for bringing these very strong women to the conversation. I know you want to really get their thoughts on not only how do we support our children through this process from sort of that education lens, but just from a family life balance perspective.
I know. So, ladies, I know COVID has been very difficult for us. So before we get into the whole discussion about schools and all of that, háblame, how have you and your family been coping? So, Marisol, if you can start, please, with that question. Let us know.
Well, as I am a mom of 4, and I have them in every single stage. So I have 22, 18, 13, and 10, who's about to be 11.
God bless you.
Yeah, so I have them in every stage academically. I have them in elementary school, middle school. I had my daughter who's class of 2020, ay bendito. She was in high school, and then I had a college student. And what we did basically was we worked as a team, and we pulled together, and we just tried to help each and every one of us out. And my husband is a correction officer, so he had to go to work every single day. We had to take precautions. We had to distance ourselves from family and friends, which was difficult. And as a teacher, it was especially hard because I found myself in the middle of Zoom classes, having parents that were having a difficult time, and it was almost just easier for me to just jump in my car, go and sit outside their door and say, okay, this is what you need to do, and show them how to use the technology that's involved, and helping my school family, which is not that I'm biased or anything, but Saboteur is truly amazing.
Woohoo, Saboteur!
Talk about stepping it up and just being there for each other, for the whole community, our staff, our administration, our parents, our students, and each other's families. I can't tell you how often, Shirley would reach out and say, so are you crazy yet? And I'm like, been there, done that boat sailed, but we're good. Thanks for asking.
Well, as far as I go, it's been really difficult. Most of my family's in New York. And so we have lost people to the COVID. We lost my aunt on April 17th, and she became part of the 606 that died that day. And so it was difficult because, unlike other losses, you can grieve together, you can be together, you can hold each other, you can hold each other's hands. Not being able to go and see my mother and hold my mother during her loss of her sister has been really hard. And so that was something that really caused a huge, massive loss. I've lost a couple of friends. I know several people here in Violin right now, about 12 that have COVID. Thank God my family has been safe. My husband is an essential worker, so he goes to work, but we take the precautions we need to do here. Our two boys, one is in Florida and one is in Pennsylvania. And so they are pretty distant, and they've been doing what they need to do to stay safe. But it has affected in a way that it has caused me to shift my thinking, where you think tomorrow is promised to us or next year. The people that I have lost had dreams to accomplish for next year, and next year didn't come for them. So it's changed my process of thought. It's changed what I needed to do. I work with a company called HISPA, Hispanics Inspiring Students Performance and Achievements, and we were 1 week short of our kickoff conference at Columbia University for the youth of New York City. And the week before, everything went shut, and we had to shut down the whole entire program. But thank God, we keep moving along and we keep pushing along. But it's a difficult moment, and it's a moment that no one's ever lived in history, as far as all of us being alive now. And it's something that we have to really change. This is our new norm.
I want to get back to Marisol for a second. Marisol, there's a lot of parents watching this that relate to you not only as a mother, but also someone that's balancing, whether a teacher or an activist or a working person or working mother, working woman or man or parent that, are trying to find that balance. How do I support my child? Whether I'm maybe having to figure out an alternative childcare situation, or I'm blessed enough to maybe work from home, and I'm sort of balancing having to work because work doesn't expect less, but having to really support the child as a education support. And then obviously there's children in different situations, whether English learners or special needs. So what's your advice to parents just trying to figure out the best way to balance this all?
Well, as a 23-year veteran, as a special education teacher, I can tell you that some of the tips and tricks that I've been working with my parents with, and just trying to walk them through such a strange time. And a lot of them, like you said, English language learners, they're saying, okay, bueno, Missy, yo no sé cómo yo voy a hacer esto con la tecnología. So lo que yo siempre le digo, con calma, lo podemos hacer todo. Pero si se agitan, no vamos a terminar nada. So I found my students, they would repeat that to their parents. And at one point, I remember one of my kindergartners saying, tranquila, mami, tranquila, que la Missy lo tiene. So one of the things was patience. And not many parents know that I, too, as a parent of a child with an IEP with special needs, that I saw firsthand the frustration of a child with special needs when they can't complete the task or the assignment that was assigned to them virtually. So what I found was most helpful was communicating with his, number one, with his special education teacher and with his regular ed teacher if they're in the ICR program. It is so important. And when I tell you that every single teacher that I worked with, again, I'm talking about Saboteur, and I talked to my colleagues across the district, and I don't know one colleague that didn't do this. It was, I'm going to FaceTime you. We're going to walk through this process together. I can't tell you how many teachers were working during dinner time, like myself, on at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, because we have a huge population that works until 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we have, and I don't think many people know this, we have a big population of caregivers. And these caregivers, these primary caregivers, they're grandmas and older didis and older uncles that have no idea how to even turn on a computer. So what I found myself doing was explaining to the parents that any type of paperwork that is sent home, have your child work on that while you're at work. Just to let them know, even if they don't understand it, just let them work on that. Don't expect your 70-year-old baby to be able to navigate through going on Google Chrome, going on and clicking on the link, because it was just too much. Because, like I said, I'm not only saying this is what you need to do, but I'm also living it. You know, I have a mother-in-law who's a caregiver for a second grader, and that was one of the things that was really frustrating, because they want to help, but they're not sure how to navigate through the Zoom system. So one of the things I did was, number one, if your teacher sent any type of hard copies or any paperwork, have them work on that. And I'm not saying give them the entire packet. I'm saying 1 page a day, 10 minutes. Right. All they need is 10 minutes. Anything beyond that, you're pretty much just setting up your baby to be frustrated, to be upset, to be crying, and then ultimately say, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. My teacher, I can't tell you how often I would get on and the tears, big crocodile tears, and it wasn't my students, it was my parents. Right. Oh my gosh, if I hear one more time que la misi no sabe ser bien y yo no. So it was not frustrated. So I think it was just a process of, number one, knowing your child's limitations and not doing more than 10 minutes worth of work. And then in the evening, see if that's something that your particular teacher, whomever she may be, if she had a half hour to say, listen, is there any way you can just walk me through it? And sometimes I found having the student actually do it and making them responsible, even first graders, you'd be surprised. However, I do want to let everyone know, just because your child knows how to go on YouTube and knows how to work an iPad and a phone, it does not mean they know how to go on a Google Classroom and work all the links. It is not the same thing, people. Okay? Right. I can't tell you, parents were like, well, if you know how to do Fortnite, you can definitely go on Zoom. It's very different. Very, very different.
Oh, thank you so much for that great advice, Marisol. It's really, really important. So, Addriana, I want to talk a little bit now about stress. As a motivational speaker and a life coach, what advice do you have for parents to help their kids deal with stress, and how can they keep them motivated?
The key here is to be proactive instead of being reactive. That is so important. We are all stressed out. Parents are stressed out. Children are stressed out. So for the parents, I believe they need to be the example they want the children to be. So if the child senses that mom is stressed out, or dad is stressed out, or grandma's stressed out, they get stressed out. They don't even know what's going on. And so if the parent is short with the child is going to shut down. So be the example to that child that you want them to copy. Also, be attentive. Be attentive to when they're shutting down. Give them brain breaks. And I call them brain breaks that just let them just zone out. Let them take them for a walk. Let them ride bike. Let them get that energy out, because let's face it, winter's coming and we're going to be stuck indoors. Let these kids go out and play. Let them be kids. Yes, there's work to do. So set perimeters for that work. Set the times that they're going to work. And then
that's so important.
and sit down with them and explain to them. If you don't know as a parent, you don't know an answer, let them know you don't know the answer. You don't have to get frustrated. You don't have to yell. You don't have to tell them, well, you should know this. Calmate, calm down, take a step back, be proactive and go, when my parents yelled at me, it didn't work. I could shut them out. And as a sign language interpreter, you learn to shut people out.
Right.
So calm down, take a step back. If you need a break, tell your child that. It doesn't matter if they're 5 years old. Let them know, right now, I want to breathe. Can you breathe with me? Speak to them on their levels. Explain to them and let them see your humanness. Because,
absolutely,
I mean, we grew up where I didn't see my mother cry. And when the first time I did, she held her pain in. And she was the source of our strength. The first time I saw her cry, I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't even talk to her about it for a while because it scared me. So if you're scared, share with the kid. Talk to them. Share your emotions. Be attentive. Be proactive. And then be the role model. Be the person that you want them to copy. If you're working from home, let them sit down next to you. Show them your homework. Show them what you have to do so that they see, oh, wait a minute, we have a common ground here. If you don't know something, say you don't know it and find the answer, or help them, tell them to help you find the answer. And then just talk on their level, explain things to them. Saying you should know doesn't cover it anymore.
Exactly. That's so important. I'm so happy you bring that up because I think just explaining things and to help students understand what's going on, and like you said, showing your humanity as a parent, letting them know, listen, we're dealing with stress too, so we're going to do this together. We're going to get through it together, and it's going to work.
We were students too, so as a student, I don't like math, and so when my granddaughter and I were working together, we had to do the math. I'm like, oh, and I told her, I said, oh, I don't like math. And we don't like the subjects we don't understand, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm a very creative person. I'm very artsy. I'm very hands-on. Math and I don't get along. And I explained to her, and one of the things that we had a conversation, she said, it was really cool to see that you were a teacher, sign language interpreter. You work for the school system and you still don't like math. And she's 14 years old. She's in high school now. Mm-hmm. And just for her to see that, she thought it was cool. She thought it was really cool that I don't like math, but put me on a basketball court and I'll play basketball all day. So it's showing them that you were a kid too, and there were things that you didn't like. And the parent, we don't have to be perfect. Stop being perfect for these kids, because we're showing them things that is not ever going to happen. We will never reach the source of perfection. So show them your humanness. Show them when you're afraid. Show them but explain to them why. That explanation, that understanding is gold. In every household, it is gold.
Wow.
Adriana, and we're talking to Addriana Montalvo Andujar, who's helping us think through these life balance steps and how to present ourselves and be better parents and be real parents during this very stressful time with this sort of mixed match of education system. So we kind of got a break in the summer, but not really, right? Because that even strains us with childcare even more now, kind of in this more permanent virtual learning situation. And Marisol Serrano-Colon is going to be back on in a second to talk to us about a teacher's perspective. But I have this question for you, Adriana. It's not in the script, but I got to keep it real with her. I like to say on Bomba Live, we keep 151 here. One of the things we talk about enough is how this impacts the adult relationships, because nobody's getting any time. Some of us are literally working 24/7, like 9 to 5, like at work together, because we're all working. If we're fortunate enough to work from home, maybe somebody got laid off and somebody's working from home, or somebody's having to deal with everything in the house with the children and the house stuff and maybe work while someone's leaving the house. So can you talk a little bit about advice for the couples and the adults, how to deal with this situation? Because this is causing more stress around how people are sort of losing whatever precious time they may have had for themselves and each other. And it's causing a lot of stress that we're not talking about. We want to be there for our families, but we got to take care of ourselves too.
Self-care is important, period. Self-care does not mean you're selfish. So putting yourself first, taking care of your needs first is important for you as a human, as a person. It's kind of like that airplane stewardess thing, They tell you when the mask drops, what do? You put on your mask first, and then you help somebody else, correct? So self-care, do those things that bring you joy. Do those things, start new hobbies. I always wanted to be a runner, and right there, you see, I did my first virtual run. I believed I couldn't do it, and I just decided during this time, I'm going to learn more. Just so happened, my husband decided to join me, and so we're doing a run in November, the Rocky Run, actually. Start developing things, and communication is key. So you need to talk, and if you have children, you need to let them know when it's mommy, daddy time. You need to, even if that means leaving them in the house while you two sit in the front porch and just hold hands. Remember those moments when you used to sneak off, and you didn't want your mom and dad to catch you holding his hand. Remember those things that led you to fall in love with one another. Compliment each other, communicate with one another. When you've had enough, when you're stressed out, let the other person know. They're not mind readers. They don't have a crystal ball in front of them, and they should have known better, or they should have figured it out. If you feel a certain kind of way, then speak to them. Express yourself, but not, again, just like I said for the children, be proactive and not reactive, because we are in closed quarters. We are 24/7 with each other, and we get tired of one another. So if you're around each other constantly, develop habits. Maybe you want to go running. Maybe you want to start walking. Maybe dancing. My husband and I, we moved the coffee table in the living room, and we love to dance salsa.
Good for you. That's a great tip.
Salsa night.
I thought about that. I said, man, what was the last time me and my wife went out and got to dance? I miss that so much,
But if you miss it, then do it. Set it up for her. And if you have children, let them see you dance. Teach them how to dance. Make it a family thing. Children are losing our culture, so teach them how to dance. Merengue is the easiest thing, and it's the most fun thing to do. Start doing family parties, even if it's just your unit. Have a picnic together, even if it's your family unit. Go to your backyard. Set it up in the living room. Have the children help you build tents in the house. Do things. Play hide and seek and tag. Remember those games from back in the days? Bring them back.
Kids love tag.
Oh,
hide and seek. They love that stuff.
Yeah, they love it, but we don't do it. And why? We're adults now. We're too, we can't play those games anymore. Teach them how to play kick the can and stickball. Get back into what you used to do. Bring back your childhood and show them how wonderful it was.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Marisol, are you there with us?
Marisol was a minute ago.
No, she's there. Marisol, can you hear us?
Marisol. All right, so she may have to come back in real quick. But Addriana, one of the things that I've been finding during this COVID situation is that we're kind of like trying to find ways to reinvent myself, like do new things. Like this Bomba Live is something I had never done before, something that I'm doing that is new. And other projects, pursuing other projects and passions that I never pursued before. Can you give us some advice on how we can do that?
Well, reinventing is something that I don't necessarily call it reinvention. I say diving into your purpose and your call and going back into those things that you wanted to do at one point, and they're resurfacing that passion that you had, that thing that you had. You've always been an advocate. You've always been somebody to push our community. And so what a great way to do it virtually. be out there speaking and touching the magnitude now, globally, going globally. So this is something that's always been inside you. What's happening is that your passions, those things that have been innate to you since birth, are resurfacing and they're coming up. And a lot of people try to cover that. For me, it was my book. I always wanted to write a book, but people told me, and people that I thought were looking out for me would say, nobody wants to read a book about people who overcome struggles. There's so many self-help books out there, don't do it. But it kept nudging in me. And I grew up in the welfare projects in Bushwick.
Right.
Nobody's going to read a book about a girl like that. And so it just kept after me. That passion, that thing is inside you. It resurfaces. What you need to do is just honor it and go for it. Look,
that's right.
I believe in falling 7 times, but getting up 8. You get up 8 times. And if you fail, that doesn't make you a failure. It just didn't work out for you. But it doesn't mean that you're a failure. You don't have to be validated by people's limitations. People project limitations on you because they're limited to that, but you're not. So you're not reinventing yourself. You are resurfacing. You're coming the real Shirley.
Like that. Woo-hoo.
So Shirley is there. Shirley's coming out, and those dreams and those desires that you had since you were a child are now popping out. What I suggest to our viewers is look back at how you used to play as a child. My son used to play G.I. Joe, and I didn't like guns because I'm a domestic violence survivor. So here he is playing G.I. Joe at 4 years old. I'm like, no, even with a pencil, he would use it as a gun. And I'm like, no. Right. And he grew up to become a Marine. So you see how things happen. Right. I used to not sing into a brush. I used to speak into a brush. And I became a motivational speaker. So these are things that are inside you already. It's just a matter of pulling them out. And as a parent, you can show the kids and show the journey so that the kids might want. Let's make little entrepreneurs of these kids. Let's push them along the way. You know?
Adriana, you're breaking it down because I have a son, these kids are on their tablet and their, devices, and you think they're not getting anything productive done. But one of them plays Minecraft, and he's building these incredible structures, and he's planning it out. I'm like, my son's gonna be this kid's gonna be an incredible architect.
He's gonna be an architect.
Yeah, or build airplanes, and he's really grasped to that. And I'm like, you know what? I support it 100%. And we're talking to our great friends, Addriana Montalvo, and Marisol Serrano-Colon. Marisol's had some tech issues. I want to squeeze her in for a final thought. Marisol, as a teacher, first of all, we appreciate you trying to get in here. We're all dealing with like tornado warnings here. Marisol, give our family out there. We got a lot of teachers watching you, trying to figure out how you're doing it as a mother and as an educator. So just any last bits of advice for our Bomba Live family out there watching this tonight. Marisol? I think, yes.
Number one is to reinvent yourself, as Addriana said, but also include kids. I think it's important that we become a part of their world, because I think
yeah, we're trying, Marisol. Unfortunately, you just have a bad connection, but you can certainly try, and we'll try to get you on later in the show. Addriana, you referenced you have a new book, a book out, which we're really excited about, Shoes for Nana. So tell us about the book and how this relates to sort of people balancing all kinds of things during this COVID-19 season.
Shoes for Yana. Yana, Y-A-N-A, is an acronym for You Are Not Alone. And when I was going through my domestic violence and I was going through the things that I had personally, my life fractures and circumstantial stalls, I always felt alone because, we're taught what happens in the house stays in the house. And I came to find out that as I started to share my stories, I found that I wasn't alone. And so as I began to speak in shelters and go to domestic violence shelters and speak in women's ministry groups, more and more women were coming up to me because At the time that it was happening, they knew me, but I never ever allowed them to really know what was going on behind closed doors. So you are not alone. It's 16 women love shoes. First of all, you know, we love shoes.
Yes, we do.
So shoes, because women love them, but each woman is represented by a shoe and the journey they take in the shoe. And so it goes anywhere from, you know, simple broken heart, your first love, and you think you're going to marry him and have 5 kids and live in the suburbs, to him breaking your heart, to a woman in New York getting stabbed. My friend's daughter got stabbed over 30 times in her face and head, and she was left blind by her perpetrator, who she knew, and she forgave him, and she asked mercy on him in the courthouse. And how do you get to that place of forgiveness? How do you journey? And so in the book, I'm Ruby Slippers, and I tell my story as I walk the yellow brick road of my life. And it's been a beautiful journey because now men are reading it, and I am I'm working on Shoes for Yanni now, which is You Are Not Isolated. And that book is for men because men want their own version of this book. Men isolate themselves. So Yanni means you are not isolated. And I really want to impact the men also because men are abused and men have gone through things. And that's a population that we, you know, everybody just says, suck it up and be a man. Well, what does that mean? You know, when you tell a boy you're crying like a girl, what does that mean? Why are you saying that to him? And so that's where I'm coming. I just want real stories from real people, just to show that it can happen. And if it happened to me, it can happen to you. You know, Jeremiah 29:11 says, I have given you a life. I have given you purpose, a life of hope and a hope for a future. You know, that God wants to give you a life of abundance. He wants to help you and not harm you, give you a life of abundance. And I really believe that. And so I want to support the men. As I said, men are reading this book and they're reaching out to me. They need it. And so that's what I'm working on now. I know we're coming to a close, but I do want to leave you with something. And I do this exercise a lot, and it really does help you put things into perspective. So usually I ask people to close their eyes, but you guys don't have to close your eyes. But I want you to, if you want to close your eyes, then you can really imagine. Imagine, and I got this from Les Brown, who's one of my all-time heroes. And he said, imagine, if you will, that you're on your deathbed. So that's real to us during this COVID process. And standing around your bed are the ghosts of your dreams, your ideas, your abilities, your talents given to you by God. And you never acted on them. You never wrote that book that we were waiting for. We never saw your leadership. You never spoke when you needed to. You never defended your stance. And there, standing around you, looking at you with large, angry eyes, are your abilities, your talents, your skills, and all the hope that has been buried inside you, that resurfacing thing, Shirley. Mm-hmm. And they're standing around you, looking at you with large, angry eyes, saying, we came to you, and only you could have given us life, and now we must go with you and be gone forever. And that quote is how I think about the people that I've lost in this COVID crisis. Because when they are gone, when you are gone, you take your purpose, you take your leadership, you take everything with you. And so if you don't come out now, if you don't resurface now, I'll never know what could have happened had you come out.
Wow.
I tell you, so inspirational. Addriana Montalvo, Andujar, and you can find her book and all of her, invite her to speak to your group and continue to engage. We have some friends, Addriana, that have a whole nonprofit organization supporting Latina domestic violence survivors out of Philadelphia. Christina Vega and her team, they're on social media saying we got to get connected with Addriana and collaborate. So we're going to continue to work together on a lot of levels. At Purpose Steps is where we can find Addriana on social media. Let's get to our next segment because We have these wonderful young people, the YouTube sensations, Kaidel y Axel in the queue. And we're going to see if Marisol's social media technical will work out. She can be a part of the next conversation. Addriana Montalvo and we're going to keep the work together. I'm so glad Shirley brought us back, collaborating, and you brought so much to the table here. And enjoy the rest of the show. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend.
You too. Don't forget to dance with your wife.
She's listening. She's going to take me, but she's a salsera. So the other stuff, whatever. But we're ready to roll. So
living room.
No, sounds good. Thank you so much, Addriana, and we'll be back in a second with Kaidel y Axel.
Escuche, que busca un compañero.
¿Quién tú eres?
Yo soy el príncipe Abuevana el Grande.
Eso es muy largo. Te voy a poner Dinoman. ¿Y qué poderes tiene? Ok. Para. Dinoman, ¿estás listo para nuestra primera misión? Pues vámonos.
Buenas noches, familia. Yo quiero introducir directamente de San Juan, Puerto Rico, familia Kaidel y Axel y su papá Jesús. Familia, bienvenido a Bomba Live.
Hey, bienvenidos. ¿Cómo están?
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thanks for the invite.
Oye,
Tremendo.
bien.
Qué bueno. Miren, yo me la he pasado viendo sus videos y me la he pasado riendo. Kaidel y Axel, estoy tan orgullosa y tan contento de tenerlos aquí hoy. Yo soy una de sus fans. Ahora, olvídate, estoy compartiendo sus videos con toda la gente que conozco porque es que me encantan. Pero yo quiero saber cómo ustedes empezaron con estos videos. Cuéntenme.
A nosotros nos gusta ver YouTube. Y un día lo estábamos viendo.
Ajá.
Y después papi me dijo, oye, ¿por qué ustedes ven videos de niños divirtiéndose? Para eso lo podemos hacer nosotros. Y así empezamos.
Oh, wow, qué chévere. Y Axel, ¿cómo tú entraste en esto? ¿A ti también te gustaban los videos de YouTube?
Sí.
Y entonces tu hermano te enseñó cómo. Explícame, ¿cómo te envolviste? ¿Tenías miedo? ¿Estabas tímido? ¿Qué pasó? Cuéntame.
No tenía miedo ni estaba tímido.
Ah, sí me gusta, tremendo.
Olvídate, Axel, bien agresivo. Bien, yo tengo una pregunta a Jesús porque yo tengo dos varones también, 17 años, y siempre me preguntan, 11 y 8 años, está creciendo bien rápido, y siempre preguntándome, quiere empezar un página de YouTube. ¿Qué es su consejo a los padres que no tienen mucha experiencia tomando videos, grabando videos, pero sus hijos quieren volver en este plataforma? ¿Qué es sus consejos para esos padres?
Pues primero hay que apoyar ese interés y si les gusta ver YouTube y actuar, pues hay que desarrollar eso. O sea, lo primero que yo digo es apoyar a los hijos. Yo no sabía nada de video, ni de editar, ni de grabar, mucho menos esto, pero me tiré, me zumbé. Y en el proceso fui aprendiendo. Y si tú ves la trayectoria de nosotros desde el primer video hasta ahora, hemos mejorado tanto en la actuación y en todo. Claro, yo tuve la experiencia de hacer todo esto en la cuarentena, que no tenía mucho tiempo de ocio y pues me metí a investigar. Pero mi consejo principal sería entonces, zúmbate con los hijos, atrévete y mira a ver qué pasa.
Exacto. Bueno, Kaidel y Axel. Kaidel, ¿en qué grado tú estás?
Yo estoy en cuarto.
¿Y qué tú quieres ser cuando crezcas?
Yo quiero ser actor y cantante.
Huepa, sí me gusta. ¿Y tú, Axel? ¿En qué grado estás?
En kinder,
Oh, ¿y qué tú quieres ser cuando crezcas?
actor y cantante también.
Echa.
Vamos a tener una familia aquí de cantantes y actores. Ah, entonces yo le tengo una preguntita, porque yo vi ese primer videíto que me fascinó de cómo papi los está ayudando a ustedes con la enseñanza virtual, pero díganme la verdad. Does your dad do a good job helping you?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he
actually.
Actually.
And does he usually use cookies to show you concepts? Usa la
No,
galleta
that,
para enseñarte conceptos.
That was just a joke, right?
Yeah, that was just a joke.
That was just a joke. Okay. So he is doing a good job. No se queda dormido, no pierde la paciencia. ¿No?
No.
Wow.
Bueno. Con este sí, le gusta moverse,
Ajá.
pero he tenido que estar al lado de él siempre. O sea, por los 4 horas que hay en clase, yo estoy sentado al lado de él porque se distrae rápido.
Well,
Oh, sí.
we're going to see if we can get Marisol back in this conversation. She was in the first second. Marisol, can you hear us? Marisol. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties there. Pero Jesús, yo quiero ahora, ustedes están poniendo en sus videos algunos comentarios de la política también en Puerto Rico. So we want to show one of your latest videos about how people are dealing with con la pandemia en Puerto Rico y puede dar nosotros algunos comentarios sobre sus pensamientos when you were making this video. You got some provocative, subtle stuff.
Yes,
So let's show the latest video de
All right.
Kaidel y Axel, and we'll come back and continue to ask them some other questions.
Próximo. Superman. ¿Qué tú haces aquí?
Para solicitar los chavos de Trump.
¿Tú rendiste planilla el año pasado? ¿Te leíste 100 años de soledad?
¿Qué tiene que ver eso?
Ah, se me cayó el sistema.
Hello,
Perdón. Lugar de nacimiento.
Cristón,
¿Dónde queda eso?
por Ponce.
Bueno, te va a llegar el depósito entre mañana y junio 2022.
Hey, explica un poco sobre cómo cultivó. How did you come up con esa idea? Algunos chistes, pero también comentarios.
You know, most of the ideas I come up with when I'm running. So I like to run, I jog, just to get stress, relieve stress. And that's when I come up with the ideas. Y en Puerto Rico, tú sabes que la política es el deporte nacional. Everybody comments, everybody's involved in some way or another. Y para mayo, we were having this issue, and we're still having this issue, by the way, in Puerto Rico, where people aren't getting their unemployment checks. You know, people who were fired or furloughed because of the quarantine and the lockdown, because of bureaucracy and red tape, they weren't getting their checks, and people were making lines and lines and lines, and that was on the news back in May. So we decided to comment on that, but in our own way. So I was imagining, what if Superman went to the unemployment office? You know, here's a guy, a superhero who his job is to save people, and now that everything's locked down and he has nothing to do, he goes try to get help from the people, and this is what he runs into. And everybody who's dealt with Puerto Rico government agencies can relate. So I think that's why this video went viral. You know,
I thought that was such a good message. In other words, if Superman can't get through, imagine the common Puerto Ricans, right? And not just the common Puerto Rican on the island, but the common citizen, you know, anywhere here in the United States, that also has been an issue with unemployment checks and el famoso chequecito de Trump. And so I love the commentary on your videos. Kaidel y Axel, hay muchos niños que a lo mejor no están muy contentos porque no están volviendo a la escuela de forma presente, ¿verdad? ¿Ustedes tienen algún consejo para esos niños que estén tristes o preocupados por no estar en la escuela? ¿Qué mensaje ustedes tienen para ellos? ¿Qué ustedes le dirían?
Que
Una pregunta bastante profunda, ¿verdad? Pero que tú le dirías para que se motiven y no se preocupen.
yo le diría que sigan haciendo cosas para matar el aburrimiento y cuando se acabe esto del coronavirus, pues allá ya puedan volver a las clases en persona.
Exacto. ¿Y qué tú crees, Axel? ¿Tú crees que si ellos ven los videos de ustedes, entonces se van a sentir un poquito más contentos?
Sí.
Axel, y yo sé que tú empezaste kindergarten, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo ha sido eso? ¿Cómo han sido las reuniones de Zoom con tu maestra, Axel? O tu maestro, no sé si tienes un maestro.
Maestra.
Ajá, ¿y cómo ha sido esa reunión de Zoom? ¿Te gustan las reuniones de Zoom? Sí, ¿estás aprendiendo mucho? Sí. ¿Y tú, Kaidel, cómo ha sido eso hasta ahora?
Está bien. Me gusta.
¿Te gusta? Okay.
Sí, me gusta.
Estos nenes son la changa, Dios mío. A la verdad que yo estoy bien impresionada de cómo tú como papá has encontrado un talento en tus hijos y lo has desarrollado. Yo creo, como estábamos hablando en la sección anterior con Addriana Montalvo, estábamos hablando de cómo uno volverse a encontrar o hacer cosas nuevas. Así que te felicito como padre que tú pues has hecho algo para mantener a los niños haciendo algo nuevo y estar motivados y estar envueltos en algo bien lindo, porque nos están trayendo mucha felicidad, ¿sabes? Nos están trayendo mucha felicidad y mucha alegría. Marisol, ¿estás lista para tu pregunta? Vamos a ver si Marisol.
Yo solamente tengo una pregunta.
Ajá.
Sigue.
De los tres en YouTube, ¿cuál es tu favorito? A los tres. Yo sé que cada
That's a good question.
uno tiene un favorito diferente.
Who's their favorite YouTube stars? Kaidel y Axel. That's a good question, Marisol. Good question.
¿Cuál es tu favorito? Tú tienes un montón.
Un montón.
¿Quién es el primero?
El primero probablemente Ryan, de Ryansboro.
Esa es favorita de mi chiquito también, de Maxwell, ¿sí?
¿Y quién más?
A mí también me gustan los Ninja Kids.
Yep. They're from Pennsylvania.
You're relating?
No, my youngest, he told me he wants me to go see them. They live in Western Pennsylvania, and I'm like, if I go to their house, I'll get arrested. I can't just knock on their door. That's contra la ley, hermano. I can't. It's called breaking and entering. So anyway, but that's cool. I put Addriana on the spot. Addriana, you have a comment or a question for our special guest in Puerto Rico, Kaidel y Axel?
What you're doing, Dad. I love what you're doing with your boys.
Thank you.
You're making them creative. You're participating with them. You're getting them out there. I love it. And they're actors. Like they're real actors. El chiquitín.
Olvídate.
Ese lo tiene abuso.
Tremendo duo. Tremendous duo.
And you know, you should take great pride in being the father that you are, because you are exactly what I was talking about, being the role model and being the person that you want them to grow up to be, and you're doing that. So I want to applaud you, because let's face it, there's not a whole lot of dads out there doing it. And this is a perfect example of how a family can unite to do something positive, do it together, bring joy into people's lives and just keep going for it. So kudos to you, especially Dad. I got to speak to you.
No, and he's obviously teaching the good music. He's got the plena drum back there.
Mira,
Tremenda
tiene
camiseta con la Fania. So Jesus knows about la música buena también. So this is a good dad all the way.
Y la camisa de Fania y todo.
Seguro, la mejor música del mundo, hermano. So, bueno, Kaidel y Axel, this has been so wonderful. ¿Tiene su mensaje a la juventud del mundo, la gente mirando de Puerto Rico, de diáspora, o la comunidad latina? Any other messages, Jesus, your wonderful children, quiere expresar esta edición de episodio de Bomba Live?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's liked and commented and is following us. You know, we began this as como un vacilón para matar el tiempo. And we shared it privately at the beginning, and the Superman video went viral, and everything's just exploded since then. And we take great pride in reading the comments people leave and how it affects them, how it makes people happy, especially in stateside where people they just love they love our videos and they love these guys. I mean, they're the real stars here. We just want to say thank you to everybody who's supporting us. And the videos are coming. They're going to continue.
No, sigue para adelante. You got some special children there. And like Addriana said, we really admire you as a father. So sigue echa para adelante, man. You're onto something. These two are very special. They have ese charisma. I mean, all children are special, but these two, they're such a good duo. You know, they have great timing and they're really good at this. So Shirley, any final thoughts for Jesus y Kaidel y Axel?
Ya, yo simplemente quería añadir que son ahora parte de nuestra familia de Bomba Live. Saben que estamos a sus órdenes. Se pueden conectar, ya ustedes tienen nuestra información, se pueden conectar con nosotros cada vez que tengan un proyecto nuevo o simplemente quieran volver al programa. Saben que esta es su casa. Pero antes de que se despidan, yo quería que compartieran cómo las personas que están viendo pueden acceder a sus páginas sociales. So, comparte con nosotros.
Nos pueden encontrar Kaidel y Axel PR en Facebook y en Instagram.
Y también en YouTube.
Kaidel, Axel, Jesus, mil gracias. Thank you. I know you stayed up a little past your bedtime, so we really appreciate your patience. And we're actually going to play one of your great videos. And then, Shirley, you and I are going to come back and go over some real quick news headlines on this episode of Bomba Live. Mil gracias, familia.
Kaidel, ahí está llegando un avión.
Pues vamos. Hola, bienvenido a Puerto Rico.
Welcome to Puerto Rico.
¡Todo Puerto Rico! A comer pasteles con el lechón, arroz con cangules y a beber ron, que venga morcilla, venga de todo. Y que se chave todo.
Turista, bienvenido a Puerto Rico. Tenemos las mejores playas, tenemos buena música y también tenemos buena comida.
Y también tenemos coronavirus.
Axel always brings it back to the political stuff. Unbelievable, that kid. I tell you, Shirley, thank you for bringing it to the table. Shirley, just any thoughts? They're great talent. Thank you for bringing them to the table. They're fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just was, thinking about, because I wanted the show to be very positive. I think we have heard so much about COVID that unfortunately it's not getting any better. We still have over 1,000 people dying on a daily basis in the United States, and it's always in the back of our mind. And I just wanted to bring a show where it would be a little bit more positive in the sense, okay, COVID is here. So what are we doing now? Now that we know that our kids are going to go back to school in what, in one way or another, what can we do? What can we bring to the table to bring some hope to the parents, to the teachers, to the kids on how to deal with this whole situation? So it was an honor, my friend, just to, bring them on board, because this is just an example of what's been happening, how people, what I call reinventing themselves, and just going into new things. And I think that is just the right attitude in the middle of the pandemic. And to see these two kids with such natural talent just put it out there and just make us smile. Everybody should be going to their social media, Kaidel y Axel PR, so you can enjoy their videos because you will be laughing. I mean, I can't stop. I watch.
You had me laughing all the show because you said when you booked them for the show, and I watched the videos. Y cuando Axel said when Kaidel asked, ¿dónde está Krypton? Al lado de Ponce. Sorry,
Ponce, no, the face he does.
No, pero bien boricua. Those chistes and oh my goodness, those kids are fantastic.
Yeah.
And Jesus, thank you, brother. As a father, I really admire this young father as well. So we're definitely going to support them 100%. I wanted to go over a couple of quick news headlines before we let you go. Of course, I always have to surprise Shirley with something. But there's, I mean, look, Puerto Rico's got a lot going on. I mean, I can't be on a whole week without mentioning a few things. So I'm a news guy. What do you want? So the first thing we got to quickly get into, I want to shout out a good friend to the show, Carmen Cruz, who is sponsoring. I'm going to put her flyer up here so we can just kind of go to the side. So Carmen is doing a to support the people of Puerto Rico that are dealing with the pandemic, and of course, Hurricane Maria. She's doing a virtual silent procession online. So, which is going to be this Sunday, starting at 11 o'clock a.m. And you can go to just look up on Facebook, Silent Procession NYC for PR. Silent Procession NYC for PR. The flyer's up on the screen. And so if you want to support the people of Puerto Rico with the ongoing, all of these crises, post-Maria, the pandemic, and the ongoing economic crisis on the island. So thank you, Carmen Cruz, for sharing that information. Another picture of some tremendous Puerto Rican women I got to put up on the screen are the two Puerto Rican women in Congress.
Yes.
Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as people can see on the screen here, presented a bill in the House of Representatives to create a system that Puerto Ricans could decide ultimately what the status or relationship of the island is to the United States. That's caused some controversy by some people to say, well, we have a plebiscite happening, a ballot initiative basically in November, which is non-binding. And Congress has basically always just kind of thrown that recommendation in the trash. So this is an attempt to have a process where people can Puerto Ricans can still lead the determination of the island. So that is an issue that's not going anywhere. And it's going to be very difficult to address. My personal opinion, I appreciate the women's efforts, and it's good to continue the discussion, one way or another, frankly. But my main focus is going to be on things that we can do in the short term to treat Puerto Rico like whether it's part of the United States or a full country, but really treat it with the respect it deserves, like dealing with the Jones Act and the Promesa bill. So I know, Shirley, you always keep an eye on what our Puerto Rican women in Congress are up to.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the effort, but like you said, I think there's some other issues that have to be dealt with, including, the Promesa law and all of that, and La Deuda that still has not been audited, and everything that is going on in Puerto Rico that is not allowing our people to live the life that they deserve. And in turn, we have all these other things happening. It's really interesting because, here everybody's talking about how horrible 2020 has been and, how they want to do over. And I'm always thinking about the island. I mean, for the last 3 years, our poor people have been dealing first with Maria, then with the earthquakes and everything else. Now the politics, the last mess with the primarias, and now they're talking, they don't even know what's going to happen in November. So, it's just a lot of things going on. And while I appreciate their efforts, I just think that maybe we can do, like you said, things that are more, I would say, more focused right now. And definitely getting rid of la junta esa that is just, I don't know, creating.
Well, and the other, I think one of the reasons that they decided to do it is that look, I think if you're really following kind of the nuts and bolts of messaging and sort of the DC political beltway, the statehood movement's gaining momentum, not only from the fact that it's won the last few plebiscites. We can discuss, obviously those ballot initiatives have sort of been written to favor statehood, if you kind of know the machinations of it, because the statehood parties basically control the island politically for quite some time now, mostly. But that, the progressive movement, because they see DC statehood as important, under the guise of wanting to make sure they feel like they're being fair to all people of color.
Right.
Progressive white people and non-Latino progressives don't really understand the island issues much, are just sort of throwing Puerto Rico in there too. Like, hey, they should be a state too. And I think Puerto Rican activists have a little dim perspective on it, want to sort of stunt some of that momentum for, statehood or nothing. So I think that's a strategic move. And obviously, the election's coming up, and we call on all the gubernatorial candidates from all the parties, not just the two major ones, to appear on Bomba Live to discuss these issues. But, so I think it was a strategic move. Obviously, none of that's going to move in Congress the next few months. I mean, they can't even get pandemic relief passed for even their own people, much less dealing with the island. So, but, there's definitely some strategic maneuvering there. So the ladies are always a step ahead of us. Let me get the other Puerto Rican up here making moves. My man, my man. So besides having clearly the best haircut, the best mustache in COVID during the COVID season, our man Benito, Bad Bunny, released, not only won this Summer Songwriter of the Year 2020 by ASCAP at the Latin Music Awards, but then came out with a song this Sunday, Compositor del Año, which basically was his musical freestyle about the political situations happening around racism, immigration, and the 2020 elections. Obviously, staunchly against Trump, and really kind of bringing up how we have to deal with racism from a Latino perspective. And Puerto Ricans need to stand up and have their voice heard, not only on the island. Bad Bunny, Benito really got registered to vote in Puerto Rico, and said he would not vote for either major party. So Benito's making some strong statements, and Puerto Rican, outside Residente from Calle 13, Ricky Martin, this generation of Puerto Rican musicians are taking a step. It's very analogous to me of how there was a generation in the 80s and 90s of black athletes that weren't as politically involved, and now that's sort of coming back. I kind of think that way for Puerto Rican musicians. In the 70s, Hector Lavoe, there was a lot of Willie Colon, Ruben Blades, Puerto Rico, but the old salseros, there was a lot of activism in the messaging. And then the balada crowd and the 80s druggy crowd came in, 90s, they weren't too political. And now we're sort of making a comeback. So I applaud our folks who are getting their voice out there.
I just really like that it's now more part of the mainstream. I remember being raised in Puerto Rico. They used to call it Canción de Protesta, right? And you would, hear people like, Roy Brown, Taone Típico, and other groups that, were considered in that category. And they were not necessarily in the mainstream until later on. But I think now it's more accepted, and I think kind of like demanded to be an artist and, do commentary on what's going on, because it's just so important. And I think people can connect to what you're singing to and to your art in a way that is deeper. And even though I'm not a fan of Bad Bunny, you've always known that reggaeton is not my favorite style of music. But I admire that at least he's using his platform to really create change and influence, and create awareness of, what's going on.
Don Benito will have his voice heard. No question about it.
Watch one day, and I know you.
Well, you may not be the co-host on that one because you kind of put it out there, but I'm sure you can have a. I think once you have an intellectual conversation with him, I think you'll connect with him. It's like Cardi B. I wasn't picking her music, and now her activism got me to take a second look. So I think it'll be the same thing for you and Benito. But I want to, speaking of leaders, quickly shout out Mercedes Vasquez, who pointed out to me this issue about a week ago, and now it's come out. Daniel Prude is an African-American man that got killed, died in police custody in Rochester, New York. and she got me hip to this, that this was an issue brewing in upstate New York. And now the video came out yesterday that he died of asphyxiation, and now there's a video with them putting a bag over his head. So that's another community, another loss.
Yes.
Our love and prayers to the Prude family. And social justice is, we have to continue to stand up against these issues, because as we can see, it's the leadership of this country continues to basically encourage people to hunt us down in the street. So we've got to protect each other and continue to support social justice issues. Shirley, anything else? Anything else as a teacher? Give people one more tip as we finish this episode out.
Oh, one more
they can do to support their kids here.
One more tip. I think the most important tip is to be prepared. Prepare as much as you can. Create a schedule for your child. That is if you're home. And make sure that the child adheres to that schedule. Continue communicating with the teacher. If you have any questions, teachers are available through email, through phone, even through whatever platform they're using to teach, which is Google Classroom. There's ways in which you can send a message. So just remember that this is difficult for everybody. And it's okay to reach out and to say, listen, I don't understand what's going on. A lot of us are on the same boat, but just understand that we're here to help. If you are a parent who has to work, reach out to the organizations in your community. I know, like I said previously, there's a lot of people in the community, a lot of organizations who are stepping up and offering programs where in a limited manner, they can offer tutoring and they can watch your kids and make sure that they're completing their work. If you don't have access to that, then talk to your neighbors, talk to family members, find a way to get that support system that you need. To your church family always, is always willing to do something to help out. But, don't be afraid to reach out. If you feel you're struggling and you're having some issues, do not be afraid to reach out to your family and friends. I think during these times, we are always, the most beautiful things do come out of people, and that sense of helping each other is very important. So that would be my advice.
No, and that's so important. And I would encourage people to also, there's inevitably in all the communities watching this around the country. I know our friends in Allentown, Pennsylvania, with the Unidos Project have a beautiful thing where they're collecting money because the school district's not providing either the Wi-Fi or the Chromebooks.
Oh, really? Wow.
To support, there's most likely, there's inevitably in all the communities watching this, there's somebody that's going without, there's a gap. So find out what that gap is, find out who's supporting the families in that situation, and donate your time, donate your money. You might be able to help people virtually, tutor. You may be able to help, translate for families that are having a difficult time communicating with their school district or their teachers. And so, there's ways to support. If you're watching, there's a good chance you're very fortunate. You may not be in the same dire straits as some of our other folks that are dealing with unemployment, dealing with foreclosures. There's a lot of people going through it right now. So if you're watching this and you're blessed, pass it along, pay it forward, support people. And for those that may be struggling, don't be afraid to it's not a sign of weakness. Addriana talked about this earlier. We don't all got it figured out. And so I think that's a really important message, Shirley. So I want to thank Addriana Montalvo, Andujar, from Purposed Acts. What a wonderful message she had. Marisol Serrano-Colon, who had some technical difficulties, but still brought a lot to the show, a lot of energy. And her question around the YouTube characters was very good. Came in very good. Marisol, we'll have you back.
We will have her back.
Yeah, no, it's all good. She brought a lot to the show, and she was great on the first segment. Shirley, not only did you co-host the show with me, but you were the producer, did a wonderful job. Y'all saw that everything was already set a week before. You wonder, wow, how did Ray get so organized? That was the producer. So that's the producer. Kudos to you, Shirley. Thank you all so much for watching Bomba Live Final Translation. Subscribe, follow, share the show so we can get more people to hear this message. And we'll see you next week with a special guest, Denise Collazo, who just wrote a book, How to Support Latina Organizers. So not related, but she's got the flavor. So Denise will be on the show next week to tell us about her new book and some of the organizing she's done in her recent decision to move back to Puerto Rico. So we'll have a very important conversation with our great friend Denise Collazo next week. Shirley, enjoy your Labor Day weekend and best of luck with the school year, okay?
Thank you. Bye, everybody.